All right, folks. Well, Merry Christmas. And yes, we're going to talk about a Christmas movie. And with me again, this lovely lady. Vex is in the house. That's right. She is indeed a certified poxicologist. I am a vexologist, and we will be here to slaughter the English language, have fun with one another, and hopefully you guys will be entertained along the way. So, Vex lady, how are you? What's going on?
I'm doing all right. I hate this movie that we're about to discuss. How
I
about
know,
you?
I know. I don't hate it, and that's part of the problem. Is
Mhm.
because I have been done videos where I talked about Deck the Halls or Christmas with the Cranks, where I'm like, we watched this movie. Why am I watching this movie? The Grinch, the 2018 Grinch, is a film that the kids love. I have a
Mhm.
couple of, and I will admit, when I got the screening for this and I came out of the theater, it was a very meh movie for me.
Mhm.
I felt very similar to Despicable Me, to be perfectly honest. It's a very meh movie for me. They're like, okay. But as I've watched The Grinch, it's grown on me now where I can tolerate it. But I will say this, I
Mhm.
am not trying to slot this above or even in the same conversation with the classic Chuck Jones, How the
Mhm.
Grinch Stole Christmas, Seuss 30-minute adaptation.
Mhm.
Totally get it. It's the GOAT, right?
Mhm.
I don't even want to get into the debate on whether or not I think it's better or worse than the Jim Carrey version of things. I will make references to that, I think, to make my case on why I think this is at least palatable.
Okay.
Um, but I will say this: if we at least concede the fact that we're going to make a Grinch project,
Mhm.
we shouldn't do that. But let's just assume we have to do one. The first thing I could say about this film was I felt like they were trying to create a world that I could believe this Grinch could live in. Now, it's not necessarily the Grinch that I saw Boris Karloff narrate,
Mhm.
but I can at least feel like the Grinch in his world. He's not quite the outcast that he
Mhm.
was in some of the other adaptations and things like that. He kind of can mingle among them, and no one seems to be his phase. He has a neighbor or someone who calls him by name, those kinds of things. But the world building kind of works for me.
Mhm.
So I say that because in the Jim Carrey one of my arguments with the Jim Carrey one not working for me personally was they didn't get into they made the Who's so materialistic and obsessed with each other's competition and all that. Like the one stealing like the street light for the house and things like that. It becomes so
Gotcha.
over the top that at
Mhm.
the end, when they're going to have Christmas with no gifts, it's almost like we really haven't got a dose that any of these people care about anything other than the materialism. Whereas this cartoon, I felt like these are just the Griswold crazy addicted tribe. They're just obsessed with Christmas. It's
Mhm.
not that they don't care about one another. And actually, that maybe that's kind of to a fault because it doesn't create enough contrast with
Yeah.
the Grinch, who's just because I think that the Grinch in the animated version, and this is where the problem is, he's being reduced to the grouchy curmudgeon who doesn't like Christmas.
Mhm.
That's it. He's not really the Grinch from Seuss or the Grinch of Karloff and things like that. He's more of a realistic curmudgeon Christmas hater. Is that a
Yes.
fair way to lay the foundation, at least at this point?
I guess I like so the biggest problem I had with this film is that it doesn't feel like a Grinch story. So I think I would be a lot more forgiving to the take that it decided to go with if it weren't labeled as the Grinch, right? Because I don't remember the Jim Carrey one as much. I kind of vaguely remember having fun with it just because of, I was still in grade school when it came out. But I had grown up watching the, 1960s animated one every single year.
Sure,
So
of
that
course.
right? So that to me is like that is Grinch. And then I'd read the book, as a, toddler and all that stuff with my parents. So for that cartoon adaptation felt like a one for one with the Grinch that I kind of knew. But
Mhm.
I this I love Despicable Me, first of all. Let me clarify
It's
that.
grown on me. No, no. Again, I was trying to give you the growth, right? So,
Right.
like, coming out of the theater, I think I gave it like 2.5 stars, but it's grown on me now where I would add a star. It's more like a 3.5 star movie. It's very rewatchable. It has an energy that kind of continues. I enjoy the
Right.
story arc a lot better. I thought it was very generic at first, very simplistic, but it's grown on me now because I see the kids a little bit better than I did originally. Things like that. This movie
Gotcha.
as well has grown on me,
Mhm.
but like I said, with that caveat that I gave you, like I totally get it. He's not really the Grinch
Mhm.
from the book that Karloff brought to life.
Yeah.
He's more like the curmudgeon who doesn't like Christmas. He's supposed, in my opinion, maybe, and again, I may be making Star Wars sequel type arguments here. I totally get that, folks. You guys can throw stones at me for not hating this more, but I felt like this was a way of like, okay, Pops and Vex have been hired to make this Grinch movie, and we don't want to make a Grinch movie, but you know what? It pays really, really well.
Hmm.
So we're going to make this movie. I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to do anything that's going to be like the Chuck Jones one because it's a goat. There's no way to do anything like that. This just
Yeah.
don't. Let's do something completely different. So we'll make the Grinch more like a relatable human. He's like the guy who doesn't light his house when there's lights everywhere. He's kind of alienated. I mean, he has a dog, but he doesn't really like anybody. He tolerates the dog. He likes the dog, and at times he doesn't like the dog. But it, he reminds me of my dad. The Grinch in this reminds me of my dad. It's like he'd rather be the Grinch and be anti-Christmas than participate in the tribe and society. And there's no reason for him to be a part of things.
Yes.
So it's more like alienation rather than hatred, and that's I
Hmm.
think the big difference. Is that are we whittling it down to this? 'Cause I think this is where the divide definitely starts. There's no way to come back from this. Once we
Hmm.
have this divide, I totally get there's no way to come back. I got it.
No, I would say that's fair. They definitely, even just like Cindy Lou and her mother, like they make those characters try to feel a little bit more real world, which the whole point, or at least what I've always seen the Grinch story to be like, is it's yes, I mean at the core of it, it's a Christmas tale that you're supposed to get along with, but it's um it's like a coming together story. It's a like no one is past saving kind of deal, or no one is past redemption, right? That's always been the arc that I've seen with the Grinch, even in the Jim Carrey one. And then
Agreed.
with this one, it feels like there's no wholesomeness to it, if that sounds odd. Like I
Hmm.
felt that changing so many of the character motivations, so like making the Grinch into just kind of like your everyday kind of, oh, I don't like Christmas kind of Joe Schmo, instead of someone that was genuinely like outcast from society, someone that was hated, someone that was kind of feared by all the Who's in Whoville. And then the weird decision to make Cindy Lou's mom like a single mom with which is an arc that like I don't understand why that was so very clearly introduced in the first 5 minutes of the film, where she's rushing to get on the bus, and then they're just like, "Oh, I guess they still got you on night shift," right? That's something that never really comes into play later on. And even like Cindy Lou, instead of her trying to, recognizing that the Grinch is kind of a darker individual who needs to be shown like this is why it's good to celebrate Christmas, and here's what the value of it is, instead of it just being about presents, turning her into just this kid that's looking to like kidnap Santa was kind of weird. And that becomes basically her entire focus for the film as well. And they then just kind of like, after the Grinch finally robs everyone of their decorations, which I could see the callbacks to the animated one, right? Like how when he takes the tree, he makes it into a stick, and then right?
Hmm.
So I thought that was kind of fun because I felt a little bit nostalgic for it. But then it just seems like they hastily kind of put together, like with him coming to join the Cindy Lou's family for Christmas dinner, they kind of just hastily threw in kind of what the point of the original Grinch tale was in there, to kind of end off on a positive, heartfelt note. So I've never been disappointed by an Illumination film so far. Like I've really enjoyed everything. Like even Sing, and I'm not particularly a musical person. I thought Sing was a lot of fun. I like the Despicable Me movies, but I was really disappointed by this. It just,
Hmm.
there was no heart to it, I think, is the biggest problem. And it probably goes back to what you were saying. It's like, okay, we have to make a Grinch movie, but we don't want to make a Grinch movie. Here's the best we can kind of do to try and
Yeah.
modernize the tale at the same time, to make audiences relate to it a bit more. Because there are a lot of things that are outdated about the original tale, right? So
Yeah, I
I'm just,
feel
yeah.
like you hit the nail on the head too when you talked about how he's just not Grinch, right? He's just a different person. He's supposed to be very humanized. He's playing human music. He's entertaining himself with his dog. He goes shopping. Different elements that don't feel like what Grinch would do, and definitely not being alienated. Like he's very self alienated. He alienates.
Mhm,
He chooses to be separated from society,
mhm,
whereas the book implies he's almost like the monster on the mountain, right? So the boogeyman element is totally removed from this. And I don't know how to reconcile that of why, and maybe that's it. Maybe it's just because it's so different in my head, even though it has a Grinch name, it's more like, it's just a different type of product. And maybe it
Yeah.
just, and maybe it would sell better if it was not Dr. Seuss's Grinch. It's more like when you call someone a Grinch, you know what I mean? You refer to someone as being a Grinch. They're kind of acting like a Grinch. You know what I mean? You're kind of,
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of how the film feels. It's more like that is the
Yes.
person, not the
Yes.
monster in the book and the stuff like that. So, all right. So let me before I let you counter on that, or I guess you can counter. Go ahead and counter on that first, and then
No,
we'll go.
no, I do agree with you. I think it's just there's a different, like, there's a nostalgia factor that's really playing in for me. So maybe that's the
Mm,
difference, because I do agree with you. I guess I should also say I don't hate this film. Hate's a very strong word. So I just strongly dislike this film, we'll say. Because I probably, if someone wanted to watch it, I'd be like, "Eh," but I'll be like, okay, I'll sit through it, whatever. Um, I don't even remember what the point. No, I agree with you. There's a nostalgia factor because, again, when I picture Grinch, when I think of Grinch, I think of a very specific character. I think of very specific message. I think of very specific themes as well that kind of come through.
yeah.
I think the Jim Carrey one, kind of like, from what I recall, it did a pretty good version of adapting overall what the original Dr. Seuss tale was going for. So I think, because I know a lot of people didn't enjoy that film, but again, it's been a very long time since I saw it. So maybe if I watched it now, I would, as an adult, knowing what the Grinch is about, maybe my perspective would change. But I'm just, this does not feel like a Grinch film. It should have been just called anything else. Maybe, yeah, if you took out the Dr. Seuss thing, maybe it could have worked a bit better. Maybe it just could be like, oh, how the Grinch came to love Christmas, or something like that. Play with the title a little bit.
Hmm.
But at the
I didn't
same
think
time,
they had Dr. Seuss in the title. I thought it was just called The Grinch. I didn't know it had Dr. Seuss
I
in the
think it's
name. Does
Dr.
it?
Seuss's The Grinch. I could be wrong though. Hold on,
I don't
let's
know.
double check.
I'm looking to double check to see if because I see on IMDb it just says The Grinch.
I might be thinking of the poster then.
The
Hold
the
on.
Jim Carrey one, I think definitely for sure is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Yeah, I don't think on this one they have anything other than just The Grinch. I don't think it has. Oh, I guess it does have Dr. Seuss's The Grinch. Yeah, you're
Is it
right.
on
I'm
the
sorry.
movie
It's
poster?
on the poster. Yeah, it's on
There
the
we go.
poster.
Okay, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, I stand corrected on that. Yeah, no, I think that is the fair argument is when you try to do something like this and it gets held up to a mirror of something that is like the pinnacle of greatness, it
Hmm.
can't hold a candle to it. And they just come up with this contrived little world to play in, and then it's like all bets are off with chaos. And I will say this too, and I think it's a very valid argument is that the Grinch is not center stage the whole time. There's a ton of these extra
Yeah.
characters. They're all introduced out of nowhere. They have
Hmm.
little like the neighbor and his little story arc and
Hmm.
things like that. I felt though I liked those characters more than I did in the Jim Carrey version. And I know, like you said, you weren't going to reference that because you haven't seen it recently. But for
Yeah.
me, in the Jim Carrey one, I'm introduced to neighbors and the mayor and people like this who are really presented as pretty awful people, and not
Hmm.
all of them even have a redemption arc or anything like that. They're just there.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, you saw um, interesting things kind of come to light out of different ways, even though they were even if they were just used as a foil to set up a Grinch joke or
Hmm.
gag or whatever, things like that. So again, I'm not trying to make this movie to be more too much more than it is.
Yeah.
It it. I say I can at least look back on it a little more positive. When the kids want to watch it, I'm not sitting there with disdain, like, oh God, dear
You're not a
Lord.
Grinch, so to speak.
No, no. Well, I try not to be, even with the movies that I don't care for. I will admit that sometimes they will shut me down from wanting to watch ones that I want to watch. Like,
Mhm.
we have some folks in the house that are not a big fan of the Miracle on 34th Street films, or we have some folks that don't want to sit through It's a Wonderful Life because, let's face it, there's this much Christmas in the Wonderful Life movie, which is,
Yeah.
and I definitely get shut down if I want to put Die Hard in. So these people are definitely they're bigger Grinches and curmudgeons than I am, in my opinion. But okay, so are there what positive elements, if any, could you
Mhm.
kind of point to in the film?
I like the animation style, but again, like I haven't had any problem with Illumination doing that.
Mhm.
I think some people, or at least I could understand because I didn't read any reviews or any. Again, when you messaged me like, "Oh, we'll talk about the Grinch," I'm like, "There was a Grinch in
I know
2018.
you
What?"
were like there. We've never. You. Her response. Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe we should do that. Okay. I don't want to dox her per se,
No,
so
no,
I
you're
will
good.
just
You're good.
read. I'm going to read what her responses were. Okay. Her first response is. Let me see here. No, wait. I got to go back up just a little bit more, and I'll correct the year because I think I typed it wrong. Your response is there was a 2018 Grinch question mark exclamation points. It's like I looked it up with Benedict Cumberbatch like question marks like what? And then it's like I'm like, and then it's us joking back and forth about other stuff. And then it was I'm watching Grinch now, and so far this is the only Illumination film that I haven't liked. And I don't think I can finish this film. And then it gets great because she says, and this is literally what Vex started with. I have so many questions, boss. And there's like a long list. Can I read these questions? Because it's
Yeah, go
hysterical.
ahead. Maybe not the last one, because maybe that one will make
Yeah,
me
yeah, no,
seem
no, I
like a
understand that. Yeah.
racist. But
No, no, I got you. So, why is Cindy's lose mom now a single mom? Why is it Cindy's goal to make the Grinch appreciate Christmas? Why is no one scared of the Grinch? Why is the Grinch able to walk around through the town willy nilly? Why does Cindy low key the leader of a child gang? Why is the Grinch so milquetoast? Why do they change his reason for hating Christmas? Why do the narrators? Yeah, so that was Vex. As I broke Vex, having subjected her to this movie, which in hindsight sounds a whole lot worse than I think it is. I find this film to be very generic. I think that is probably the better way to talk about this film is that
and
it
again, like,
feels
I think I would see it that way if it weren't for that
yeah,
nostalgia
yeah.
factor, right?
Yeah, I get you. I get you.
Like, so, like, I think, yeah, the animation is pretty standard for Illumination, so I will give it that. I liked some of the fun little musical cues, but that's about it. Like, Benedict Cumberbatch as the Grinch, I don't think he did a great job just as a voice actor in general for the character. Um, just because I didn't feel like the character didn't stand out, right? That's one of the things that you really have to strive towards when you work with an animated medium, is that the voice is meant to really sell the character, and I didn't feel like he sold the character. Even Cindy Lou, who I feel like is probably the voice actress that probably played my Agnes in the Despicable Me, like the very tiny one, the youngest one.
Hmm.
It sounds like it might be the same actress. I could be wrong. But like Cindy Lou, I just didn't care for there we go. This is the Christmas element is missing. That's what's wrong with the film. So like for Cindy Lou, her goal in both the original animated one and even in the Jim Carrey one was to try and get the Grinch to like Christmas, to appreciate that from beginning to end of both films is her goal. But here it's like I just want to get this letter to Santa because I have these wishes. And then it evolves into this plot to kidnap Santa to
Well,
get
she
her
only
way.
has, I mean, spoiler alert for those of you who have not seen this movie, which at this point we really don't care, but spoiler alert, she actually only has one wish, and that is Christmas for her mom. It's a very
Yes.
selfless wish. It's not actually like I have a bunch of wishes materialistic, and that's
Mhm.
kind of the gag with the kids because the kids are like, why would you want to kidnap Santa? Why would you, what are you doing? Like, we don't mess with Santa.
Yeah.
Santa's off limits. He's like, well, no, no, no. I have to talk to Santa so he can, do something nice for my mom because my mom is so selfless for us. I think it's the right thing to do. But you're right; it does flip itself because it becomes less about Christmas and more about the interpersonal relationships
Yeah.
that are not Grinch related, and that is, I think, a very, very valid argument of this not being called the Grinch
Mhm.
for that reason. Because I think if this was just some other rando Christmas type movie or something, it might have been better received.
Exactly.
Um,
I would have no issue with it if it were not associated with the Grinch, but again, it's because that is the selling point for this,
mhm,
and it
mhm.
doesn't feel Grinchy. That's problematic, right? But like it just, yeah, the Christmas element is it's rushed at the very end. It seems to be pretty dependent on just this town wanting to get things that you would associate with Christmas together, as opposed to getting into the spirit of Christmas. So like all these little characters that we see on the sidelines, like they're all trying to put up their lights or get a tree in time, or even when the town all gathers to light up the tree, it's not so much that the underlying point is that it's togetherness. It's more that, oh, this looks Christmassy, so therefore we are experiencing Christmas kind of deal. There's no heart there. Um,
Okay.
you kind of see it come in later. Again, when they're just trying to tie the film together by the end of it, where they start singing the La Who Doris, the
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
song, right? You get it there, but even then, it's just like it feels like such a mismatched scene to throw in there because leading up to the what almost 90 minutes leading up to that, you haven't sold me that anyone in this town cares about what the purpose of Christmas is. So,
But I think that was the problem with the Jim Carrey movie as well. Like, and it's worse
yeah.
than the Jim Carrey movie for me because it's almost like this hyper competitive materialism. You know,
Mhm,
everything 90% off must go, and it's the neighbors competing with lights. And it was easier for me in this film to buy that they would come together and they would actually dine together and things like that than it was in the Jim Carrey version.
mhm.
Um, what do you think about Little Grinch's backstory?
Didn't care for it. Didn't
Okay.
care for
No,
it at all.
hey, listen, I'm setting a
Yeah,
softball up for you to pan this film. You're
yeah.
not attacking me personally. I didn't write this film, so don't worry about it. You're okay.
Are you sure?
I did not. I did not write this film. I would never have written. It literally for again real world. You'd hire me to do a Grinch movie, and I'd be like, "There's no way." Like a pops, do you want to do a Star Wars movie? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No desire to do things that I'm that passionate about because to
Mhm,
me, I don't think that there's ways to develop that. Now, if they were to say we want to do a Star Wars uh, sequel project that is like Darth Revan and it's something completely unrelated to the original folks, then
mhm.
maybe. But I would be very hard pressed to want to do Grinch type stuff. A short or something might work, but not a feature film
A
that's retelling the
feature-length film.
story. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think you can do because I think the problems that you're pointing out are all very valid and um, create because they're just trying to do things that to me are different. Like the solution is how can we because I think this is the scene. These are some of those moments that were earlier where
Mhm,
they're trying to show them together, hanging out and doing things together. So that's what I was saying.
mhm.
In contrast, to what you were saying a minute ago, it's like they do try to at least show a little bit of the everybody enjoys each other's company and those kinds of things. And he doesn't relate. This is him stealing stuff and things. Um,
Yeah, again, it just say it it's trying oh, you know what? It's trying to almost copy and paste the kind of very like typical illumination entertainment formula to a tale where it doesn't necessarily work. Maybe that is also
okay,
the
that works.
issue cuz
That's a really good analysis of the. It's trying to put Despicable Me with Grinch, and it does not work
kind of,
at all.
yeah. It's
Yeah, yeah.
because there was a really easy slam dunk to just make, oh, a 3D animated version of the original animated
Mm-hmm.
classic with maybe
Mm-hmm.
a tweak here or there, put in some more modern music, maybe throw in a few more modern jokes so it resonates with a 2018 audience better. And then that would have been easy. I don't think this film would have then been as
Man, this
hated,
would have been,
right?
yeah, because you're right. Because Grinches really grew, and this
Mhm.
easily could have just been called "Grew Christmas" or "A Grew Christmas" or something, and it probably would have worked. And almost
Right.
exactly the same way. Like he's more Gru than
Mhm.
he is Karloff Grinch for
Yes.
sure. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And
Okay.
even just like the way that he got like there's a moment towards I want to say it was like closer to the last third of the movie where the ox that he gets to try and run the sleigh, right? He finds
Mm-hmm.
out that that ox has a little baby ox and it has a wife ox and it's like, "Oh,
Yep,
oh
Fred or
okay."
whatever its name is. It's like
Yeah.
this
Yeah, they're
random kindness towards animals thing is just out of the blue. The
yeah.
idea of the weird reindeer story is just kind of, and the only way they do anything with that is they just do a callback later where it happens to be part of the reason that he survives the sleigh going over the cliff.
Yep.
So, but
So
all
yeah,
right.
I'm not again, if it weren't a Grinch movie, would be totally fair, but it just seems kind of weird that you had a very like just financially even just make a 3D adaptation of
Mm-hmm.
the original animated classic, done deal, because everyone has watched that at some point, or at least I guess if we're maybe I have to watch the Jim Carrey one again because now that you're mentioning like, oh, everyone's greedy about getting lights and all, maybe
Mm-hmm.
that was the modern version of it back in 2000.
Well, folks, I thought it'd be fun to talk about something that I knew she didn't like, and I didn't know it was going to be this interesting to talk about because I don't know that the film is actually that interesting. It is. It is.
It isn't. It really
It is to me. It is very palatable Christmas fodder. Very much in the way I feel about the new Miracle on 34th Street. It's like it's fine.
mhm.
I don't hate it. It's not the goat. Like it's not. It's not the thing. Like I can keep two different things. Like this can be like the original can be the 8, 9, 10, right? The Grinch is the Grinch Miracle, and then this stuff is like the 5. It's like way down here. It's the 4. It's the 5. It's the yeah. It's fine. It's on. It's not more than It's fine. I see why the kids like it. It's okay. So that's our take on it, folks. All of her stuff is in the description. Make sure you check that out. Get connected to Vex. And we almost need like our own little playlist. We've been able to do so many cool videos together. So maybe we need to do that. I need to clear up the Vex list, and check out the Vex list of us hanging out and talking to stuff. And maybe you'll pick up on some of our other innuendos and inside jokes that we keep developing with one another. So, but folks, thank you so much for watching. Merry Christmas. Have a good holiday. Take care. I am Pops.